They say you can feel when a wolf is watching you.
Do you think it's around us somewhere now?
Maybe.
It is spooky.
This state in northern Germany is actually packed with wolves. There's even one wolf around here that's particularly infamous. Serial number GW950M. He's killed more than 70 livestock. But he really got in trouble when he killed a pony of equine lover Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission. So he got a kill order. Shots were fired, killing other wolves, none of them GW950M. After 3 years, he still lives somewhere in these forests, reportedly with his new partner and their 2 pups. A lot of people, though, want him and other wolves gone from Germany.
Is it possible to keep the wolves out? I mean, it's also a little
By
bit...
killing them, yes.
I'll admit it, I love animals and I came out here just to see a wolf. But as I looked more into it, I got deeper into a story about people and politics.
And learned about the fascinating lives of wolves.
So here are 2 things I learned, and I'll show you how I got here. Hunting wolves is possibly the worst way to deal with the problem. And it is possible to live with these predators in Europe, even as kind of housemates.
That's what secret Kenny Kenner does in the German state of Lower Saxony. I paid him a visit at a hotel he runs, whose property overlaps with the territory of a wolf pack of 7.
What is your life like, living so close to a wolf?
Ich finde es sehr spannend und sehr schön. Ich hätte mir nie vorstellen können, dass es in Deutschland wieder Wölfe gibt. Das hat mich total überrascht, als das passiert ist. Das war für mich ähnlich wie der Fall der Mauer. Ich bin ja hier an der Grenze aufgewachsen.
Ja.
Ich kannte 40 Jahre nur diesen Zaun, die Trennung und plötzlich geht das auf. Ein ähnliches Gefühl hatte ich, als die Wölfe wieder kamen.
Wolves were hunted out of Germany in the mid-19th century. But a few decades ago, incidentally after the wall fell and Germany reunified, wolves came creeping back in. As East German factories were abandoned, the land opened up. The perfect habitat for carnivores who were tempted in from Poland. People welcomed and policies protected the returning wolves. Currently, there are around 1,600 grey wolves in Germany, mostly in the north, slowly migrating downwards. They're smart animals, almost always avoiding humans, even though they live in landscapes dominated by humans. The male wolf right around Kenny's property, though, didn't come from the east, but actually all the way from the Alps, 1,200 kilometers away. He lives with his partner, with whom he had 4 pups this year.
I see often the female,
Okay.
but the male not so oft. He's very shy. Oh, there's some scat.
It's wolf scat.
And you can see a lot of hair.
Oh, yes.
And bones. Hair and bones are in there. And it smells like wolf scat.
Kenny is part of a group of volunteers that monitors wolf movement for the government. Apart from sniffing around for their excrement, he also has 35 camera traps set up in the forest. One of them caught some very dangerous wildlife approaching. This, he says, is part of keeping track of all the action in the forest and how it is changing as the presence of the wolf affects and benefits the ecosystem.
Oh,
White boar, a big group.
so many.
Yeah, it's a young one.
Oh,
Young red deer.
red deer.
Ja.
Lovely.
Wenn Wölfe andere Tiere töten, ernähren sich viele andere Tiere mit. Und über Fotofallen weiß ich, dass mindestens über 40 Arten fressen mit einer Wolfsbeute. Also es ist ein Kreislauf. Und da sind Wölfe einfach ein Teil. Ne?
Ja.
Und der hat gefehlt vorher. Jetzt kommen die Wölfe zurück und nehmen ihren Platz wieder ein und bedienen das Ökosystem.
A healthy ecosystem is essential for our survival too, from clean air and to support pollinators that help grow food. The return of the grey wolf in such huge numbers around Western Europe is seen as a great environmental success. But now, things have changed.
Hier sind die Stellen, wo der Wolf quasi gebissen hat. Direkt am Hals.
And the wolf did that?
Ja. Ja, da siehst du nicht ganz viel, weil da war auch nicht viel. Da war ein Zahn noch drin. Das hat so eine Infektion ausgelöst.
2 months ago, 1 sheep died and 16 were injured in an attack on this farm. And this is happening more and more.
Wie fühlst du dich über dieses Thema?
Schlecht, sehr schlecht momentan, weil man kann den Tieren ja irgendwie keine Sicherheit mehr geben. Ich habe mal gesagt, die Tiere sind eigentlich meine Tiere, die vertrauen mir. Aber das können sie momentan nicht mehr. Es werden ja immer mehr Wölfe, man hat keine Sicherheit für die Zukunft irgendwie. Und ich habe schon das Gefühl, dadurch, dass wir dieses Jahr schon zweimal diese Übergriffe hatten, dass es momentan rasant zunimmt.
We were also joined by the vice president of the state's farmers union.
It's not just the money; it's the work. It's what you see, and what you think about. If you see your dead animals, you let them grow up. You see how they were born, and then you see how they were killed.
Germany's and Europe's farmers' unions were successful in making their displeasure known. The EU law changed this year to downgrade the wolves' protection status. It is still protected, but member states can manage their wolves with more flexibility, including the use of hunting via licenses.
Would you personally shoot a wolf?
I'm not a hunter. I'm not allowed to do this. But if you don't tell, I will do.
And you won't feel sorry for the wolf, which also has like some right to live in this land?
I think we in the villages, we are a little bit more sorry about this. We are a little bit more maybe at the real life. We know something sometimes is born. We know it's good if it has a good life, but sometimes also something dies, and we have to kill an animal to have something to eat if we would like to eat meat.
And if all the wolves were to be killed, like it happened in Germany 100 years ago, that would make you happy?
No. I don't think it's necessary. I think he is also part of the nature, and it should be manageable to let them living here, but I think it has to be on a scale which is acceptable also for us.
A few days earlier, before my trip into wolf country, while researching the story in Berlin, I met Dr. Sibylla Klenzendorf, a scientist and conservation expert now with the WWF, who is totally against the new law.
It was a political decision now, based not on the science. Population numbers were calculated by the Ministry of Environment that we should have a minimum of 279 packs in Germany for long-term survival of the population. We're at 209 right now, so we're actually away from that minimum threshold that they themselves calculated as a minimum.
So how did that happen?
Politics. You know, it's politicians deciding one thing over their own scientists in the government.
After many research meetings, it felt like this is a very emotional story where everybody holds a very strong opinion.
So I dug deep into the science, and while population numbers are still somewhat debated, wolf behavior is where it gets really interesting. So here's a case that science makes for why hunting doesn't work. Wolves live in packs of 2 to sometimes over 10, and there are 2 main wolves. They're not called alpha anymore. The scientific term now is mom and dad. Mom and dad are the only wolves that breed, and the other adults are just kind of aunts and uncles that help out. If you shoot either mom or dad, then that changes the rules of the wolf pack. All the other adults can now start breeding, and they do. So for one, you might end up with more wolves in the area where you wanted them gone. The other thing is, look at this map that shows the movement of GPS-tagged wolves in North America. That's how much they each stay in their own territories. So if you kill one wolf, a new stranger wolf might enter a territory with completely new behaviors, which could be a threat to livestock there. And nobody knows exactly why, but some wolves prefer easy, chubby sheep to wild prey. So you might invite a new wolf in with a more dangerous taste than the original wolf.
Slovakia actually tried to hunt wolves to manage them and introduced hunting with quotas from 2014. For the next 5 years, up to 56 wolves were killed annually, but studies found this made no significant difference to livestock losses. But Germany and others did say yes to hunting anyway in the EU vote.
So what has changed politically, you think, within the EU and within Germany that
Parties have changed. You know, the ecologically oriented parties have really been reduced or are out of governments, and it's more of a conservative government that doesn't want to invest in nature protection.
The wolf has become a larger and larger talking point, with some parties in Germany running ads like this. With tensions and livestock attacks rising, the European Parliament pushed the vote through as an urgent procedure, usually reserved for emergencies. The reduction in protections was fast-tracked.
For me, this whole wolf debate is really an indicator of the larger agricultural subsidy debate that's happening and has to be restructured to really support rural areas and small farmers. And the wolf is an easy target to say we're doing something. I would hope that the rules and regulations and science has still a place, that it's evaluated fairly what the status of an endangered species or a protected species is, and then that we together find solutions of how to coexist.
I'm going to meet a shepherd who believes that coexistence is possible. They're all staring at me. Hello.
This is Stefan Erb, who has learned to live with wolves.
Hallo. Okay. Aditi.
Vor 7 Jahren ging es bei uns los, dass wir Übergriffe hatten bei den Schafen. Also dass der Wolf nachts in der Herde war und das dann halt auch in einem Zeitraum von 2 Jahren immer wieder. Und zum Schluss war es halt so häufig, die Übergriffe mit vielen toten Schafen, dass es wirklich keinen Spaß mehr gemacht hat.
Ja.
He has since adopted shepherd dogs, taking the government up on subsidies and shepherd support schemes that exist in Germany and other EU countries. He says it takes more work than before though, including training potentially aggressive dogs and staying on top of sheep protection 24/7.
Kein Problem, man setzt da einfach Hunde rein und dann läuft es mit dem Wolf. Ja. So, es ist nicht ganz so einfach, aber es ist möglich. Bei uns ist es jetzt so, dass wir, seit wir jetzt die Hunde im Betrieb haben und die eingesetzt sind in der Herde, haben wir auch keine toten Schafe mehr.
Okay.
Obwohl permanent Wölfe um uns rum sind.
Erb also has electric fences that he puts up every night, which are also paid for by the government. They go a long way, he says, but all these measures are still not completely wolf-proof.
Und da haben wir jetzt lange drum gekämpft, dass wir da eine Förderung brauchen. Und die soll jetzt auch kommen, also da sind wir sehr froh drum. Man wird um Entnahmen nicht drum rumkommen, weil wir werden diese Wölfe haben, zum Beispiel gelernt haben, über diese Zäune zu springen.
Ja.
Also wir haben viele Wölfe, oder einen Großteil der Wölfe sogar, akzeptiert mit ziemlicher Sicherheit einen gut aufgebauten Elektrozaun.
Echt?
Ja.
Ja?
Ja.
Okay. Ja, weil das ist nicht so hoch.
Nein, es ist nicht so hoch, aber es ist ja im Grunde so ein Wolf, muss ja das Springen auch tatsächlich lernen. Und wenn er aber gelernt hat, gerade als Jungwolf, dass er an so einen Zaun gekommen ist, wo richtig Strom drauf war, dann ist er auch kuriert.
Many studies agree that sometimes problem wolves need to be removed to achieve human tolerance. This is best done by professionals who target and kill the right wolf, or ideally the pack, unlike what happened to the wolves that were thought to be GW 950M. Studies show that a combination of guard dogs, fences, financial and social support, and removing problem wolves can reduce wolf attacks by around 50 to even 100%.
Pass schön auf. Ich bin einfach Schäfer, das ist einfach mein Leben immer gewesen und ich möchte einfach, dass es weitergeht und gerne auch noch in der nächsten Generation hoffentlich weitergeht. So.
Ja.
Und da müssen wir halt einen Weg finden, dass es dann praktikabel ist.
Back at the Kennels Hotel, guests are gathering to watch the footage of the forest captured over the day. While it's charming to see that a wolf walked the same path you did just a few hours before, I'm also thinking of the fate of the sheep still out there tonight and how they can be protected.
It's not just a question of us liking wildlife. It's a question of us needing wildlife for the survival of these forests and our survival that depends on these forests. And to do this, what we really need is to involve the people whose lives are at stake to be a part of the conversation. So what do you think about wolves, and what do you think about this whole wolf debate? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to come back every Friday for more such adventures.